Well, I think because while I was in that bubble, so to speak, of learning and being in nutrition school, you just feel like, wow, okay, I found my tribe, I found my community. I'm enjoying learning all of this different stuff. And then when it ended and you go back out there, there's still a lot of conditioning and I think ego stuff coming up, and having still in the back of my mind of coming from a place where I made six figures.
Mm.
And then looking at job prospects that are like $17 an hour, it's a bit of an ego trip, right?
Yeah.
Like you're humbled. And so I think just further, again, kind of getting aligned with what is actually important in my life, because so much of my life, there was that conditioning and belief system of what a successful life looked like.
Mm-hmm.
There was still work to be done in that part, right?
Yeah.
And kind of letting go of some of that stuff, and like ultimately, what is it that's important to me?
Mm-hmm.
And even looking back on it, even when I was making really great money, most of it was wasted on stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And it's wasted on stupid stuff because I'm unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
So, you kind of realize you don't actually need as much money as you think. But if you're really unhappy with your life, then you're constantly in need of more money to keep buying these short-term fixes that you think are going to make you happy.
Yeah.
So that was one one lesson, I think. And I think just continuing to navigate where my place in the world was, or what I actually wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think I got stuck on this idea that, okay, I've left this corporate job, so now I have to prove that it was worthwhile.
Yeah.
So I have to become this great entrepreneur. I have to, right? And you start putting all these other pressures on you.
Mm-hmm.
And I put pressures on myself for sure. And then you kind of get crippled by just that pressure that you put on yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So what was your next step? Like, what did you end up doing then? Like, as you're looking through jobs and things, like what did you actually end up doing?
Yeah. So I had my own clients, right? So I started slowly building that and kind of working with clients, and then working at, VitaSave and kind of putting those things together, and kind of doing a few, it was basically working with clients and then always kind of having a part-time job.
Okay.
And then, as we talked about before we started recording, then someone came knocking on my door, and there was a position where they needed somebody to actually run the college that I went to.
Okay.
And that was kind of the...
How long was that gap? Like, so you left the college, and then how long did you have until they actually asked you to do that? And why did they?
So I'd done some part-time work with them. So I was working like a couple days a week there, helping out with some different areas. And then, so they knew me and were familiar with me, and familiar with kind of my skill set and kind of my career history. Yeah, it was probably about 2 years after finishing the program that that opportunity came up. That opportunity came up, and it just seemed like the right fit.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it even took me a while to make that decision, because there was still a part of me that's like, does this mean like I failed? Like, I'm not an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still working for someone, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like those types of thoughts and things like that. But I very much have kind of just surrendered to kind of where life is directing me.
Yeah.
And just kind of trusting that life is putting me in these positions for a reason. Mm-hmm. And certainly as I got into the role, and as we've gone through a pandemic and things like that, I know that I was meant to be in that leadership position, and that, it was a rarity for somebody to know the school and know the program intimately like I do from having been a student, and also have this business skill set and this experience in marketing and business and hiring and all these different things. So I feel like all of these, as I'm recognizing in all aspects of my life, all these different experiences are ultimately kind of guiding me and putting me in a position for what I'm meant to do, rather than looking at it as, oh, I'm jumping from this thing to that thing to, it's all building valuable experience, and just trusting that life has a plan, and just kind of surrender a little bit to that.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's awesome. That's like, you're not trying to force all these things to happen. You're just enjoying what's coming. And, I think the same thing also, where like, you know, even in the future, like all these things again will like seemingly come together somehow, and there'll be a reason that you've learned all these things or taken
Absolutely.
on these positions, and it's like always impossible to know what that'll be. But like you said, like the universe has a plan that you can't even begin to imagine how that is going to unfold.
Yeah. And you can have a vision, right? You can
Yeah,
have a vision or a goal, but and I can't remember. I wish I could quote whoever it was. I don't remember. I read and listen to so many things, but I, w- I remember somebody saying, you know, you can have that vision, but a lot of times where people get very unhappy or get very negative in their life is you have this thing of where you want to be. And then let's say you're working that retail job and there's such a big gap in between your vision and what you're doing that you just feel miserable and unhappy versus looking at, what can I get out of this job or this thing that I'm in right now that is going to serve me
mm-hmm,
for what I'm ultimately wanting to do.
mm-hmm,
Right. So in
yeah,
that real retail job, what are things, what are duties, what are skills that I can work on every day in that job that are going to serve me for this longer term vision? And I think when you have that kind of mindset too, now it feels like you're working towards something and you're building something
mm-hmm,
rather than it being like, I'm not where I want to be.
mm-hmm.